You have no idea how powerful you are. Most people don't. They go through life using about half of what they've got. Maybe less, and they wonder why things don't change. But here's what I learned a long time ago: your life gets better when you get better, not by chance, not by hope. By change. Now if you'll give me just a few minutes, I'm going to share with you something simple, something you can do to tap into that power you've had all along. You don't have to wait for the government or your boss or the economy. It starts with you, and the moment you decide to step up, everything can change. You're stronger than you think, and today you'll find out just how strong. Number one, you have more strength. Then you know you have far more strength than you realize. I'm not just saying that to make you feel better, it's the truth. You're sitting on more ability, more courage, more determination than you've ever given yourself credit for. The real challenge isn't whether you have enough strength, the real challenge is whether you've learned how to use it. And most people haven't. Most people live their lives never tapping into what's already inside them. They don't because they've spent so long listening to what the world told them they were. They believed they were average. They believed they were limited. They believed they couldn't change their circumstances, and so they didn't try. They didn't push, and because they didn't push, they never discovered what they had. But you're not most people. You're here listening because deep down you know there's something more in you, and you're right, there is, and it's waiting for you to wake it up. You've made it this far for a reason. You've gone through hard times and you're still standing. That says a lot. That's proof that you're built for more than you think. But it's not enough just to survive life. At some point you have to step into life. You have to take what you've learned, what you've endured, and turn it into power. And that power doesn't come from someone handing it to you. It comes from you standing up and saying, I've got this. Even when you're not sure how you're going to get through. Even when you're tired. Even when everything feels heavy. That's the moment you find out how strong you really are. You don't find strength when things are easy. You find strength when you're tired. And you still move forward. You find it when it's uncomfortable, and you do it anyway. You discover it when you make decisions that are tough because you know they're right, and every time you do that you're building something. You're building a version of yourself that's stronger, smarter, and more capable than you were the day before. You don't have to take giant steps. This isn't about climbing the highest mountain tomorrow or running the fastest race today. It's about showing up. It's about doing the next right thing. It's about proving to yourself that you're not going to back down when things get difficult, and it's in those small decisions that real strength lives. You won't hear people talking about this much. Most people are distracted. They're chasing quick fixes, looking for easy answers, but that's not how it works. If you want to tap into your true power, you've got to do it the hard way, the honest way. You've got to do it when nobody's watching, when nobody's cheering you on. You do it because it matters to you. And that's enough. The amazing thing is, once you start doing this, once you start building your own strength, you don't need other people to tell you who you are. You don't need their approval. You don't need their permission. You know who you are because you've earned it. You know what you're made of because you've tested yourself. And when you know that, you become unshakable. Life can hit you, but you'll keep standing. You'll keep moving because now you know the truth. Now some people might hear this and think it's not for them. They might say, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've lost. And they're right. I don't know every detail of your story, but I do know this: you're still here, and that counts for something. You've got breath in your lungs and a mind that works. You've got a heart that's still beating, and that means there's still time to turn things around, time to dig deep and find out what you're made of. You wouldn't still be here if you weren't meant to do something with what you've got, and you've got more than you think. Most people underestimate themselves because they spend their time comparing themselves to others. They look around and see someone who seems farther ahead, someone who seems to have it all figured out, but what they don't see is the work, the quiet effort, the times when that person was unsure but kept going anyway. And if you saw that, you'd realize you're capable of the same thing. You just need to stop doubting yourself long enough to get to work, because strength doesn't come from comparing yourself to others. It comes from showing up for yourself day after day. And I'll tell you this: you don't need to wait until you feel ready. Some people wait their whole life for the right moment, for the right feeling, for someone to show up and tell them it's time. That's a waste. The right time is when you decide it is the right moment, is the one you choose to act in, and when you do, you'll be surprised. You'll find Out you were ready all along, you just needed to take that first step. Think about it for a second. How many times in your life have you faced something that seemed too big, too hard, too heavy to handle, and yet somehow you got through it? You didn't think you could, but you did. That wasn't luck, that wasn't chance. That was you. You figured it out, you got resourceful, you kept going, and that means you have it in you to do it again, not once, not twice, but every single day if you need to. The best part is this: the more you do it, the easier it gets. Not because life gets easier, it won't, but because you get stronger, you get clearer, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter and you start focusing on what does. And when that happens, you realize something powerful: you are in control, not the world, not your past, not your circumstances, you. And once you realize that, there's no stopping you, but you have to make that choice. Nobody can make it for you, and the longer you wait, the more time you waste. Time you'll never get back, and if you think you're not ready, you're wrong. You're more ready than you know. You got more strength than you've ever imagined, but you'll never know until you get up and use it, until you take the next step, until you decide that today is the day you take back control. You have no idea how powerful you are, not yet, but you will. You just have to give yourself the chance to find out. Number 2, you are responsible for your own life. I know that can sound a little heavy at first. Responsibility, that's a big word, but when you really let that idea settle in, something amazing happens, because being responsible doesn't mean you're to blame for everything that's happened to you. It doesn't mean you caused all your problems. What it means is that you hold the key to what happens next. And there's something freeing about that once you really understand it, because if you're responsible for your life, then you're the one who gets to make the changes. You're the one who decides where you go from here, and that's where the real power is. Most people never get around to fully accepting responsibility. They spend years waiting for someone to fix things for them, waiting for someone to give them a break, waiting for their boss to notice them, for their family to support them, for life to get easier. But if you spend your life waiting for somebody else to make it better, you could be waiting a long time, and the worst part is you give away your power while you're waiting. You hand it over to someone else, and when you do that, you give up control of your own future. The moment you say to yourself, I'm responsible, something shifts. It might be uncomfortable at first. You might feel a little pressure, but it's the kind of pressure that makes you stronger, because now you're not sitting around hoping for things to get better. You're working on making them better. You're not blaming other people for where you are. You're figuring out where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And there's nothing more powerful than that. You can't control everything. Nobody can. Life will throw things at you that you didn't expect and didn't ask for. That's how it goes. But what you can control is how you respond to it. What you can control is whether you rise to meet the challenge or give in to it. And if you decide that you're responsible for your life, you'll find the strength to rise up more times than you ever thought you could. Now here's the truth: taking responsibility isn't something you do once. It's not like flipping a switch. You make the decision every day, sometimes every hour. You wake up in the morning and say, I'm in charge of how today goes. And then you go to work on yourself. You go to work on your attitude, on your discipline, on your choices. And when things go wrong, and they will, you don't look for someone to blame. You don't waste time wishing things were different. You take a breath and you get back to work. And here's why this works: because life isn't something that happens to you. It's something that you build day by day, step by step. And the people who build the life they want are the ones who took responsibility for building it. They didn't wait around for someone to do it for them. They picked up the hammer, they laid the bricks, and even when it was hard, even when they didn't feel like it, they kept showing up. It's not easy. I'll never tell you it is. There are going to be days when you're tired and it feels like nothing is working, when you question whether it's worth it. That's normal. We've all been there. But if you remind yourself, I'm responsible, you'll keep moving. You'll keep pushing forward because you know it's on you. And that's the best motivation there is, knowing that you're in charge, that you don't have to wait, that you don't have to hope someone else gives you a break. You create the break by showing up, doing the work, and refusing to quit. One of the biggest changes I ever made in my own life came from this exact idea. I was broke, I was frustrated, and I was blaming everybody. My boss didn't pay me enough. The economy was bad, nobody gave me a shot. I had a list of excuses and I carried it around like a badge of honor. But it didn't change anything, nothing got better until I stopped and realized that I was the one who needed to change. That I was the one who needed to take responsibility for where I was and more importantly for where I was going, and once I did that, things started to shift slowly at first but then faster. Because once you accept responsibility, you're not wasting energy blaming anyone else. You're not focused on things you can't control, you're focused on what you can do today, and that's a powerful place to be. It's not just about big things either. Responsibility shows up in the small stuff. The time you get up in the morning, whether you eat junk or something healthy, whether you spend an hour scrolling on your phone or reading something that helps you grow, whether you keep the promises you make to yourself or you let yourself off the hook, these things add up. They become the habits that either build the life you want or keep you stuck where you are, and once you start paying attention to these little choices, you realize something important. You realize that your life isn't the result of one big moment, it's the result of thousands of small moments, and every one of them was an opportunity to take responsibility or pass it off, to stand up. The more your life starts to change. Some people are afraid of responsibility because they think it's a burden, but it's not, it's freedom, because when you're responsible, you're not waiting on anyone else, you're not at the mercy of other people's decisions, you're not stuck because someone told you no, you move forward because you say yes to yourself. And I'll tell you something else, the people who take responsibility are the ones other people trust, they're the ones others look up to, because responsibility is rare. It's easy to blame, it's easy to make excuses, but responsibility, that's uncommon, and anything uncommon stands out. It gets noticed and it earns respect. So if you want to change your life, if you want to be respected, if you want to make a difference, start by taking responsibility for everything. Your choices, your attitude, your habits, your results, even your mistakes. Own them. Learn from them and then move on, because when you're responsible, you don't stay stuck, you keep growing, you keep getting better, and that's how you build the life you want, one day at a time, one decision at a time, one responsible choice at a time. And when you do that, you'll look back one day and be amazed at how far you've come. Not because someone else made it happen, but because you did, because you took responsibility and you made it happen. Number 3, you can rebuild yourself anytime you decide to. There's something you need to hear today, and when you hear it, I hope it makes you stop and think, because if you let it sink in, it has the power to change everything. Here it is: you can rebuild yourself anytime you decide to. No matter where you are right now, no matter how many mistakes you've made, no matter how far behind you think you've fallen, you can start over, you can become someone new, not because you're waiting for permission, not because someone told you it was okay, but because you made the decision that you're not going to stay where you are anymore. You're not going to live one more day being less than what you know you can be. There's a truth about life that a lot of people never really accept. They live thinking that where they are right now is permanent, that who they are today is set in stone. But that's not how it works. You're not a tree, you're not stuck in the same spot, you're a human being with the power to move, to learn, to grow, to leave behind what's not working and build something better. And you can do it at any moment you choose. You don't have to wait for January 1st, you don't have to wait for things to be perfect, you don't have to wait until you feel like you have it all figured out, you just have to start. I know what happens when people hear this. The first thing that comes to their mind is all the reasons why it's too late, why they can't, why it's not going to work for them. They think about the mistakes they made, they think about the years they wasted, they think about the people who said they weren't good enough, and they believe it. But those things are not who you are, they are what you've been through, and there's a big difference between what you've been through and who you are. What you've been through can make you better if you decide to let it. Starting over doesn't mean erasing your past, it means taking control of your future. It means looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm not who I used to be. It means you've learned something, you've seen what doesn't work, you've felt the pain of bad choices, and now you're ready to do something different. That takes courage, and I'll tell you something, most people won't do it. Most people won't even try, they stay stuck in the same patterns, the same habits. Because it's comfortable even when it's painful, it's familiar, and familiar feels safe. But if you want something better, you've got to be willing to leave safe behind. You've got to be willing to be uncomfortable for a while, you've got to be willing to look at your life no Matter what shape it's in, and say, this isn't where I stop, this is where I start. You don't need everything to be perfect to begin again, you just need a reason to get up earlier, a reason to stay up later working on yourself, a reason to cut out the things that aren't helping you. That reason can be anything, it can be your family, it can be your future, it can be the feeling deep inside you that knows you were made for more than this. But you've got to hold on to it, and you've got to let it pull you forward. I've seen people rebuild their lives when everybody else thought they were finished, people who lost everything. People who hit rock bottom and they turned it around because they made a decision, they decided they weren't going to let their past define them, they weren't going to let other people's opinions stop them, and it didn't happen overnight, it never does, but every day they got up and they worked at it one step at a time, and pretty soon they weren't rebuilding anymore, they were building something entirely new. Here's what I know about starting over: you don't have to have a big plan. You don't have to know every step, you just need to know the next one, and you've got to take it even if it's small. Even if it feels like it doesn't matter, because those small steps add up. One day you'll look around and realize you're not in the same place you used to be. You've moved, you've changed, you've grown, and that's because you made the choice to start. Some people will tell you it's too late, they'll tell you you've missed your chance, don't listen to them, you've still got time, you're still breathing, you still have something to give, and maybe you've been knocked down, maybe life didn't go the way you planned, but here you are, you made it this far, and that means you can go farther. But you have to make the decision, you have to stop waiting for the perfect time, because there's no such thing. The perfect time is now, and the perfect person to do it is you. You don't have to stay stuck in old habits, you don't have to carry around old mistakes. You can let them go, you can forgive yourself for what you didn't know before. And you can make different choices starting today. Nobody else has to understand it, they don't have to support it, they don't have to believe in you, you just have to believe in yourself enough to begin. Again, I've seen people who had nothing but a little bit of hope and a willingness to work, and that was enough. They rebuilt themselves day by day, they read new books, they listened to new voices, they changed how they spent their time, they stopped wasting energy on things they couldn't control and started focusing on what they could, and slowly but surely things began to change, and that can be you. It doesn't matter where you're starting from, it only matters where you're going, and you can go anywhere you decide to go. But you have to decide, and you have to start right here, right now. Because if you don't, another year will pass, and then another, and one day you'll look back and wish you'd started sooner. Don't let that happen. Start now, start small if you have to, but start. You can rebuild yourself anytime you decide to, and when you do you'll discover strength you didn't know you had. You'll find out what you're really made of, and it will change everything. Number 4, your habits are the proof of your power. There's something about habits that most people don't fully understand, and once you get it, it's like a light comes on, you start to see everything differently. The way you live, the way you work, the way you think, it's all shaped by these small actions you repeat every single day. And here's the truth, your habits are the proof of your power, not your intentions. Not your dreams, not what you tell yourself you're going to do one day. What really shows your power is what you do over and when nobody's watching. Now people love to talk about motivation. They think if they just get motivated enough they'll finally do what they need to do. They wait for that burst of energy to hit them, they wait for the mood to strike, and while they're waiting they waste time. The people who get ahead, the ones who actually build a life they're proud of. They don't sit around waiting to feel like it, they understand that what really matters is what you do consistently, and consistency doesn't come from motivation, it comes from discipline, it comes from habits. I can tell you exactly where someone's life is headed just by looking at their daily habits. You want to know how someone's finances will look 5 years from now? Look at how they spend money today. You want to know what kind of shape someone will be in a year from now? Look at how they eat, how they move, and how they rest today. You want to know how someone's mindset will be in the future? Pay attention to what they read, who they listen to, and what they focus on today. It's not a mystery, your habits are the path you're walking, whether you realize it or not. And I'll tell you something else, good habits are harder to build than bad ones. Bad habits are easy, you don't have to think about them, you don't have to work for them, you can pick them up by accident. But good habits, they take effort, you have to be intentional, you have to decide to do What's right instead of what's easy, and most people won't do that. That's why most people are stuck. They don't want to give up what's comfortable, even though it's keeping them small, even though it's stealing their potential. But once you understand the power of habits, you realize something important. You realize that every small choice matters. You don't have to make huge changes overnight. You just need to make one small decision and do it again tomorrow. Then the next day, then the day after that, and before you know it, you've built a new pattern. You've created momentum. You've turned a small choice into a powerful habit that works for you instead of against you. I've met people who completely changed their lives just by changing a few simple habits. They stopped wasting time and started using it. They stopped complaining and started taking action. They stopped making excuses and started keeping promises to themselves. And you know what happened? They got stronger, they got better, they became people. They were proud of it. Didn't happen overnight, but it happened because they stuck with it. They understood that habits aren't about perfection, they're about direction. They kept moving forward even when they didn't feel like it, even when it was hard. You have the same opportunity, you have the same ability. You can choose your habits, you can choose what you do every single day, and those choices will shape who you become. Not by accident, not by luck, but by design. The life you want isn't waiting for you out there somewhere, it's waiting for you to build it one habit at a time. And here's something that people often miss: your habits don't just affect you. They affect everyone around you, your family, your friends, your coworkers. When you build strong habits, you become an example. You become someone people look up to, someone people trust, because they see you showing up every day, they see you doing the work even when it's hard. And that kind of consistency earns respect, it builds influence, it gives you the power to lead, not because you said you would, but because you proved you could. Now some people think they need to change everything all at once. They get overwhelmed, they try to fix their whole life in a week, but that's not how it works. You don't climb a mountain in one giant leap, you take it one step at a time, and every small step counts. Every time you choose a good habit over a bad one, you're moving in the right direction. Every time you say no to what's easy and yes to what's right, you're becoming stronger, you're building character, and that's something nobody can take away from you. I want you to think about this. What if today you made one small change? What if you decided to get up 30 minutes earlier and spend that time learning something new? What if you chose to put down your phone and have a real conversation with someone you care about? What if you committed to taking care of your health, not because you have to, but because you deserve to feel strong and energized? Those small decisions add up. They create momentum, they build habits that serve you instead of holding you back. And the best part is, once you start building good habits, they get easier, they become automatic. What felt hard at first becomes second nature. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. And when you reach that point, you realize something powerful. You realize you've taken control of your life. You're not at the mercy of your circumstances. You're not stuck reacting to everything around you. You're choosing, you're deciding, you're leading. And that's what habits give you. They give you the power to lead your own life, to build it the way you want it to. Become the kind of person who doesn't just talk about success but lives it, not because it was handed to you, but because you earned it. So ask yourself today, what habits are you building? Are they moving you closer to where you want to be, or are they keeping you stuck where you are? You have the power to choose, and the choices you make today will shape who you are tomorrow, not someday, not when you feel like it, today. And when you make the right choices, when you build the right habits, you'll find a strength you didn't know you had. You'll become someone you're proud of, and you'll look back and realize it was worth every bit of effort, because your habits are the proof of your power. They always have been, and they always will be. Number 5, you have the power to learn and grow every day. One of the greatest advantages you'll ever have in life is your ability to learn and grow every single day, and the best part is nobody can take that away from you. Once you understand how powerful it is to wake up every day and get a little wiser, a little stronger, a little better than you were the day before, you'll never look at life the same way again, because when you commit to learning and growing, you're taking control. You're deciding that no matter what happens out there in the world, you're going to become better in here, in your mind, in your skills, and in your character. I've watched a lot of people go through life waiting for something to happen, waiting for their circumstances to change, waiting for somebody to come along and give them a better opportunity, and all the while they've been sitting Still they don't realize that while they're waiting someone else is learning. Someone else is reading books, someone else is practicing a new skill, someone else is figuring things out, and when the opportunities show up they go to the people who are ready, they go to the people who were preparing, not the people who were sitting and wishing. The truth is you have the power to change the course of your life through learning. I'm not talking about earning a degree or sitting in a classroom for 4 years. That's fine, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about making the decision to learn something new. Today I'm talking about picking up a book that teaches you something useful. I'm talking about listening to someone who has more experience than you do. I'm talking about writing down what you learn, thinking about it, and figuring out how to apply it. It's the small things like this that make the biggest difference over time. Now it's easy to say, I don't have time. Believe me, I've heard that more times than I can count. People say they're too busy, they've got too much going on, they're working hard just to keep up. But here's the reality: you don't find time, you make it, and the people who make time to learn and grow are the ones who end up with more time later. They get better at their work, they make better decisions, they stop wasting time on things that don't matter, and because of that they move faster, they're more efficient, they're sharper, and life gets better because they got better. I've always believed that formal education makes you a living, but self-education makes you a fortune when you take it upon yourself to study, to ask questions, to seek out new ideas. You're adding tools to your toolbox, and the more tools you have, the more problems you can solve, and the more problems you can solve, the more valuable you become, not just in business but in life. People are drawn to people who have answers. They respect people who have wisdom, and wisdom doesn't come from watching television, it comes from learning, from paying attention, and from applying what you learn over and over again. One thing I want you to understand is that learning isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's about developing yourself into the kind of person who can handle more. It's about becoming the person who's ready for the opportunity when it shows up. A lot of people think they need the opportunity first and then they'll get ready. It doesn't work that way. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're ready for, and the way you get ready is by growing every single day. I've met people who turn their entire lives around by reading one good book, by listening to one great speaker, by spending time with one mentor who opened their eyes to a new way of thinking, and once that door was open they didn't stop, they kept learning, they kept asking better questions, they kept finding new ways to grow, and before they knew it they were living a life they couldn't even imagine before. And this is something you can do too. You don't need anyone's permission to learn something new today. You can do it on your own. You can decide that no matter where you are in life, you're not done learning, you're not done growing, and if you keep that attitude you'll always be moving forward. You'll always be ahead of the people who gave up on learning years ago. And in a world that changes as fast as ours does, the people who keep learning are the ones who win. I'm not saying it's easy. Nothing worthwhile is. You're going to have days where you don't feel like reading another page. You're going to have times when you'd rather watch something that makes you laugh than listen to something that makes you think. That's normal, but the people who push through that feeling, who keep learning even when it's not fun or exciting, they're the ones who build something special. They're the ones who get to look back and say, I'm glad I did, instead of, I wish I had. And the thing is, learning doesn't have to be boring. It can be exciting, it can be fun. It can open your mind to things you never knew were possible. The world is full of ideas, strategies, and lessons that can change your life for the better, but you have to go looking for them. You have to stay curious. You have to be willing to say, I don't know everything, but I'm going to keep learning until I know more. You have the power to learn and grow every single day, and that power is more valuable than money, more important than talent, and more lasting than luck. Because once you learn something, it's yours. Once you grow, nobody can take that away from you, and the more you grow, the more you have to give to others, to your family, to your work, and to your future. So make the decision today. Decide that you're going to keep learning. Decide that you're not finished yet. Decide that no matter what life throws at you, you're going to get better, and when you do that, you'll find that life gets better too, not by accident, not by luck, but because you earned it one day, one lesson, and one step at a time. Number 6, you can say enough and change direction now. Enough of the excuses, enough of the Waiting enough of going through the motions and pretending everything's fine when it's not, and when you reach that point when you finally say enough, that's the moment. Your life starts to change, not before, not when someone else tells you it's time. It happens when you decide that's the line in the sand, that's the turning point, and no one else can do that for you. I've seen people spend years going in circles. They kept telling themselves, one day I'll change, one day I'll get serious, one day I'll turn this around. And you know what, that one day never showed up because they never made the decision. They thought if they waited long enough, life would make the decision for them, but it doesn't work that way. Life just keeps moving whether you're ready or not. It doesn't slow down, and if you're not careful, you can spend your whole life sitting on the sidelines watching other people move forward while you stay stuck. But here's the truth: you're not stuck because of your past. You're not stuck because you don't have the opportunity. You're stuck because you haven't made the decision to change direction, and making that decision, really making it, is one of the most powerful things you can ever do. It's not about feeling ready, it's not about waiting for perfect timing, it's about drawing the line and saying, this is where it changes. I don't care how many times you've failed, I don't care how long you've been off track, none of that matters. If you make the decision to take control now, you have the power to stop the downward spiral. You have the power to cut loose the things that are holding you back, the bad habits, the negative thinking, the excuses, the blame, the fear, all of it. You can walk away from it, you can step in a new direction anytime you decide to, and the beautiful thing is you don't need anyone's permission, you don't need a sign, you don't need someone to give you a push. You already have everything you need. The ability to choose is right there inside you now. I'll be honest, making the decision is the easy part. Following through is where the real work begins, and that's where a lot of people fall off. They think that once they've made the decision to change, everything is supposed to get easier, but the truth is it usually gets harder before it gets better. You'll face resistance, old habits will try to pull you back, doubt will creep in, people around you might not understand what you're doing. That's normal, it happens to all of us. But if you made a solid decision, if you really said enough, then you'll have what it takes to push through. The secret is to remind yourself every single day why you made that decision, why you got fed up in the first place. Maybe you're tired of being broke, maybe you're tired of feeling like you're not living up to your potential. Maybe you're tired of watching life pass you by. Whatever it is, hold on to it, let it fuel you, let it remind you that you've already been down the other road and you're not going back. You're not doing that anymore, and once you make that decision and start moving in a new direction, something incredible starts to happen. You build momentum. At first it's slow, you might not see big changes right away. That's okay, change doesn't show up overnight, but if you stay with it, if you keep saying no to the old and yes to the new, you'll start to feel different, stronger, more focused, more alive, and after a while you'll look back and wonder why you waited so long. You see, most people never make the decision because they're afraid of failing. Again, afraid of what people will say, afraid it's too late, and those fears keep them trapped in the same old life. But fear loses its power the moment you make the decision to move anyway. You don't have to be fearless, you just have to be determined. You have to want a new life more than you want to stay comfortable in the old one. And here's something else: making a decision doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out. You don't need a perfect plan, you don't need to know all the steps, you just need to take the first one. Once you take the first step, the next one will show up, and then the next, but none of that happens until you decide. So I'm going to tell you something you may not have heard before. You have the right to change, you have the right to say enough and go after something better. You don't owe anyone an explanation, you don't have to stay the same just because other people are used to the old version of you. You can wake up one day and decide you're done living small, you can decide you're done making excuses, you can decide that the life you want is worth the effort it's going to take, and when you do, you'll discover something incredible about yourself. You're stronger than you thought, you're more capable than you imagined, you have more potential than you've ever given yourself credit for, but none of that shows up until you make the decision to change direction, until you say, I'm done waiting, I'm done settling, I'm done living less than I'm capable of. And once you do that, you become unstoppable, not because the road is easy but because you're committed, because You've already decided there's no going back, and that kind of decision, that kind of resolve, is what changes lives. It's what creates breakthroughs. It's what turns ordinary people into leaders, into examples, into people who inspire others to make their own decision to change. So if you're tired of where you are, if you're tired of the same old results, it's time to say enough, time to draw the line, time to change direction and move towards something better. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now, because your life won't change until you do. But the moment you decide, everything starts to move, and you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. Number 7. You are in control of your time. One of the greatest realizations you can ever have is that you are in control of your time, and the minute you really understand this, not just hear it or agree with it, but really understand it, that's when everything changes, because time is life. How you spend your hours, your days, your weeks, that's how you spend your life. Most people don't think about it that way. They treat time like something that just slips through their fingers. They let other people, distractions and habits decide how they spend it, but not you. Not if you've decided to take control. There's something powerful about knowing the clock isn't in charge of you. It's not the calendar, it's not your job, it's not your friends, it's you. You decide what gets your time, you decide what matters most, and you decide where your focus goes. Most people walk through life acting like they're stuck in somebody else's schedule. They wake up late, rush through the day, and wonder where all the hours went. They make lists, but they never seem to finish anything. They feel like there's never enough time, but the truth is they're wasting most of it. They're handing it out like it's free. And it's not. You only get so much time. You can make more money, but you can't make more time, and when it's gone, it's gone. That's why time is precious, more valuable than money, more valuable than possessions, more valuable than anything you can buy. And yet most people treat it like it's nothing. But when you take charge of your time, you take charge of your life. Suddenly you're not reacting to everything anymore. You're not letting emergencies or distractions or other people's priorities run your day. You're choosing what matters and giving your time to those things, and that's a powerful way to live. Now, when I say you're in control of your time, I don't mean you can stretch it or slow it down. Time moves the same for everybody, but some people use it better than others. They invest it instead of spending it. They use it to build skills, to deepen relationships, to take care of their health, to move closer to their goals. They aren't perfect, but they're intentional, and that intention makes all the difference. I've sat down with people who tell me they don't have time to work on their dreams, they don't have time to exercise, they don't have time to read or learn something new, and then I watch them scroll through their phones for hours. I watch them binge TV shows night after night. I see them sleeping in because they stayed up too late doing nothing important. And I'm not judging, cause I've done it too. We all have. But the truth is, you do have time. You just need to get serious about where it's going. One of the most important lessons I ever learned was to keep track of my time. Pay attention to where it's going, not just for a day, but for weeks. And when you do that, you'll see patterns. You'll notice how much time you waste waiting in lines, sitting in traffic, flipping through channels, arguing about things that don't matter. And when you see those patterns, you can start changing them. You can turn wasted time into productive time. You can turn reactive time into intentional time. And pretty soon you're not just getting more done, you're becoming a different person. Now, I'm not saying every second of your life needs to be productive. That's not the point. You need time to relax, to have fun, to enjoy life. But there's a difference between choosing those moments and falling into them by default. When you're in control of your time, even your rest is intentional. You choose it because it's part of your plan, not because you lost track of everything else. There's a freedom that comes from this kind of discipline. People think discipline feels like a cage, but it's not. It's the opposite. When you're disciplined with your time, you have more of it to do what matters. You don't waste it scrambling or fixing problems you could have avoided. You're not constantly catching up. You're ahead, and when you're ahead, you're calm. You're clear. You make better choices, and you enjoy life more because you're not rushed or overwhelmed. I've met people who transformed their entire lives just by getting up an hour earlier each day. That 1 hour gave them time to think, to plan, to exercise, to read, to work on their goals, and that 1 hour added up day after day. After a year, they weren't the same person. Their life was unrecognizable in a good way, and it all started with taking control of that first hour. If they can do it, you can too, and it doesn't have to be an hour, maybe 4 It's starting with 15 minutes where you're focused, intentional and clear about what you're doing. Maybe it's turning off the noise for a little while, no distractions, no interruptions, just you deciding what matters and giving your time to that. Time management isn't about being busy. It's about being effective. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. You can fill your schedule with things that look important and never make progress, or you can strip away the distractions, the time wasters, the things that drain you, and give your time to things that build you up. You get to decide every day. You decide when you wake up. You decide what you focus on. You decide how long you give to things that move you forward and how long you let yourself get stuck in things that don't. You're in charge, and when you act like it, life starts to feel different, better, more purposeful, and that's when things really start to change. You'll look around after a while and realize you're not stressed like you used to be. You're not frustrated with yourself. You're not feeling like you're always behind, because you're not. You're ahead. You're leading your life instead of following it around hoping for a break. And here's the thing, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start paying attention, start making better choices, start treating your time like it matters. Because it does. You'll never get today back, so make it count. Make each day count, and before long you'll have a life full of days you're proud of. You are in control of your time, and that's the key to being in control of your life. Once you accept that, everything starts to change, not overnight but day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice, and those choices add up to something powerful, something lasting, something worth working for. Number 8, you can turn discipline into freedom. Discipline, it's not a word that gets people excited. In fact, most folks hear it and they start to think about all the things they'll have to give up, all the fun they won't have. They hear the word discipline and imagine a life that's cold and strict and heavy. But let me tell you something that most people never realize. Discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is freedom. It's not a set of chains that holds you back. It's the key that unlocks the life you want, the life where you're in charge, not your habits, not your impulses, not your distractions. When you understand that discipline leads to freedom, you start to look at it differently. You stop seeing it as something you have to do and you start seeing it as something you get to do. You understand that discipline isn't about denying yourself, it's about giving yourself a better life, a life you control, the life where you're not reacting to everything that comes your way, the life where you're not always behind, not always catching up, not always feeling like you're losing the race. Discipline is what gets you ahead, and once you get ahead you have options you didn't have before. Most people don't live with discipline because they think it's too hard. They think it's going to make life smaller, less fun, more stressful. But you know what's really hard? Waking up every day knowing you're not where you could be, knowing you're not living up to your potential, knowing you keep breaking promises to yourself. That's hard, that's stressful. That's what steals your peace of mind, and it doesn't go away until you fix it. Until you take control, and control comes through discipline. Discipline is waking up a little earlier so you can spend some time thinking, planning and preparing for your day instead of rushing out the door feeling behind before you even get started. It's choosing to go for a walk or a workout when you'd rather sit and watch TV, because you know your health is one of the most valuable things you have. It's putting your phone down so you can have a real conversation with someone you care about instead of scrolling past moments that actually matter. It's telling yourself no when you need to, so later on you can say yes to things that are important. The truth is, everyone pays. You either pay the price of discipline now or the price of regret later, and regret always costs more. Discipline is the smaller payment that leads to a bigger payoff. Regret is the balloon payment that comes when you've ignored what matters for too long, and you don't want that. Nobody does, but people think they can put it off. They think they'll get serious later, but later turns into years. It turns into missed chances, and when they finally realize what they've lost, they can't get it back. I've sat across the table from people who wish they had started sooner, wish they had been more disciplined when they were younger. They had big dreams, but they didn't have the habits to back them up. They thought success was going to come on its own, that it would just show up if they waited long enough or wanted it badly enough. But it doesn't work like that. Discipline is what makes the dream possible. It's the vehicle that takes you from where you are to where you want to be, and without it you're just standing there with a dream in your pocket going nowhere. And let me tell you, discipline Isn't about being perfect. You're going to mess up sometimes, you're going to skip a day, miss a workout, lose focus, make a bad decision. That's normal, it happens to everybody. What matters is whether you let that one mistake turn into a pattern. Or whether you get back on track right away. Discipline isn't about never failing, it's about failing less, and when you do fail it's about recovering faster. You can't control everything, but you can control how quickly you get back to work. The more disciplined you become, the easier life gets. People think it's the other way around, but it's not. Discipline creates structure, and structure creates clarity. When you know what you're doing, when you've planned it out, when you've built habits that serve you, you don't waste energy on decisions. You don't spend hours debating with yourself about whether you should do the work you've already decided, and that frees up your mind to focus on bigger things, on better things. You have more energy to create, to build, to enjoy your life, because you're not constantly cleaning up messes you could have avoided. I've known people who built incredible lives because they embraced discipline. They created businesses that thrived, they raised families that were strong and close, they stayed healthy when others their age were falling apart, and it wasn't because they were lucky, it wasn't because they had something special, it was because they made a decision to control what they could control, and that decision changed everything. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Start small, pick one thing you can be disciplined about. Maybe it's your mornings, maybe it's how you spend your evenings, maybe it's your finances. Whatever it is, start there, do it every day, build the habit, let it get easier. And then add another over time. Those small disciplines add up to big changes. And don't be surprised if people don't understand at first. They might call you obsessed, they might say you're taking things too seriously, but stay with it, because later on they'll be asking how you did it. They'll want to know your secret, and the secret is simple. It's discipline. It's the choice to take control of your life instead of hoping things will just work out. When you master discipline, you master freedom. Freedom from worry, freedom from regret, freedom from wondering what might have been. You wake up each day knowing you've done what you needed to do. You go to bed each night knowing you're on track, and there's nothing more freeing than that. You're in charge of what happens next, not your past, not your circumstances, not anyone else. You and discipline is the tool that helps you take that control. Use it, get better at it, and soon you'll be living a life that most people only dream about, not because it was handed to you, but because you earned it, one disciplined choice at a time. Number 9, your power grows when you keep promises to yourself. One of the most important things you can do for yourself is to keep the promises you make to yourself, not the ones you make to your boss, not the ones you make to your friends. I'm talking about the commitments you make quietly, often when no one else is around to hear them, the ones you make to yourself when you're sitting alone thinking about the kind of person you want to be and the kind of life you want to have. Those are the promises that define you, and the truth is, keeping them is what builds your strength. It's easy to make promises to yourself when you're feeling good, when everything is going right, when you've got energy and things feel light, but the real test is what you do when you're tired, when you're stressed, when nobody's watching and you're tempted to let yourself off the hook. That's the moment when it counts, because keeping promises to yourself isn't about showing the world who you are, it's about proving it to yourself, and when you prove it to yourself enough times, something powerful happens. You start to trust yourself, and there is nothing more powerful than a person who trusts themselves. When you trust yourself, you stop hesitating, you stop doubting, you stop waiting for permission. You move with certainty, because you know you can count on you. Most people can't say that they've broken so many promises to themselves that they don't even believe their own words anymore. They say they're going to change, they say they're going to get up early, work out, work harder, save money, study more, be better, but they've made those promises before and didn't follow through, and every time they break a promise it gets easier to break the next one. Before long they don't even believe themselves when they say, I'll start tomorrow. But it works the other way too. When you start keeping the small promises it gets easier to keep the big ones. When you say you'll get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and do you build trust when you say you're going to skip the junk food, and do you build more trust when you promise to spend 30 minutes learning something new, and you do it. You're building yourself into someone you can believe in. It might seem small in the moment, but it adds up, and one day you'll look around and realize You're not the same person anymore, you've become someone dependable, consistent, strong. This isn't about being perfect. You're going to miss, sometimes you're going to slip, everyone does, but when you've built the habit of keeping promises to yourself, you don't let one slip turn into a fall. You catch yourself faster, you get back on track because you've already proven you can. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. It's not that they never mess up, it's that they don't quit when they do. One thing I've learned is that confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you earn, and you earn it by showing up for yourself again and again, by keeping your word to yourself even when it's inconvenient, even when nobody else would care if you let it slide, because you care, you know who you want to be, and you're not willing to let yourself down. You'd be surprised how many people show up for everyone else but never for themselves. They'll bend over backward to keep their word to others, but when it comes to their own health, their own growth, their own goals, they let it go, and over time they get tired, they get frustrated, they wonder why they don't feel fulfilled. It's because they've broken too many promises to the one person who matters most, themselves. The good news is you can turn it around right now. You don't need anyone's approval, you don't need anyone to give you a second chance. You give yourself one. Start with something small today, something you know you can do, and then do it, not because you have to, but because you said you would, and then do it again tomorrow and the day after that. Soon you'll start to feel different, stronger, more certain, more in control, because you'll know your word means something. That's what integrity really is. It's not just about how honest you are with other people, it's about how honest you are with yourself. Do you mean